He also just mentioned how he really admired us. He was in his later 70s. He was doing a renovation on his own condo somewhere else and needed a place to pretty much wait that out. And what was supposed to be 2 months ended up turning into 6 months. He was the best tenant ever. We got engaged while he was living downstairs and he brought us a bottle of champagne. It was one of those really amazing situations, and I feel like that's just part of it.
Welcome to the Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the leader and largest online marketplace for midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
Today, we're thrilled to have Bella and Levi Linchenko join us. This dynamic duo started in midterm rentals because of short-term rental restrictions in their market. They achieve a remarkable 90% occupancy rate across 3 properties on Furnished Finder near world-class ski resorts like Alta and Snowbird. They've recently launched a design business tailored for STR and MTR operators, leveraging their experience as digital nomads and investors. Welcome, Bella and Levi. How are ya?
Hey, how's it going?
So happy to be here.
Yes, thank you for joining us. And let's give everybody a little teaser. Why do you prefer midterm rentals in a vacation rental market?
For us, it's been just to see the success of people who want to stay for an extended period of time to really refine their skiing, or they have family in town. It's been actually really successful to cater to the midterm rental market, though it is a vacation destination. We've seen a lot of families and digital nomads, people who just want to really spend time in the market and in the atmosphere of skiing particularly. And then in the summertime, we get some hikers and other people who want to just spend time in a beautiful mountainous region. And they'll pay for it.
We also love how much less operations there are involved in MTRs and higher occupancy, which definitely feels like offsets for the higher nightly rate of STRs. So overall, it feels like we're doing a lot less to manage our properties for about the same outcome with MTR.
Definitely, 100%. Well, that's a good teaser for the conversation. And then we like to start with your real estate story. So all 3 of your properties on Furnished Finder are in the Salt Lake City area, and 2 of them you market during ski season as, here's very close to ski resorts, some of the world-class ones. So tell us about your properties.
So, yeah, we have the 2 properties in Cottonwood Heights. They're right at the base of the ski canyon. We moved in
2021 is when we purchased. It's a duplex. It was quite outdated, but the location was amazing. And so we knew that the goal would be to house hack pretty much, live in one, rent out the other until or unless it was time to transition to a new location. And so that's kind of what we did. We were really successful in a full live-in flip. We are both extremely handy. My background is in design, Levi's is in engineering. So we YouTube University'd our way to a really huge renovation for the upstairs unit, which is the more luxurious unit. It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, and that one sees insane occupancy. It was where we lived while we were renovating, and then the downstairs is a 2-bed, 1-bath. And it's a perfect, we call it skier's paradise. It's the ideal location for a couple or maybe a small family or just a few digital nomads who want to live really close to the mountain, ski in the winter, hike in the summer. And so that was literally midterm rented from day 1 when we launched it. And at that time, we didn't even know what Furnished Finder was. We hadn't heard of it. So we had put it on Airbnb, and so it did get 1 booking from Airbnb, and then we had a friend down the street say, hey, have you put your properties on Furnished Finder? And we were like, what's that? And so immediately that night signed up, and then I think that our next 3 or 4 leases were through Furnished Finder, and so we found great success in that. And then we eventually moved out of the upstairs and bought another property, which is where we live now. And we travel so much for our business as short-term rental / midterm rental interior designers that when we travel, we've built this place out. We did a huge renovation on it as well. We built it out so that we can short-term rent it when we're out of town, and it offsets the mortgage a lot. So that's been
an Airbnb house hack. Very different style of house hack where it only gets rented out when we're not presently using it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know a lot of people who do that in Denver because of the restrictions in Denver. It has to be your primary house, which is tricky to do if you want to actually be living in the house at the same time. It can be tricky. So
yeah, the first time I think it took us like 2 days to pack down our house, and since we've optimized it to where it takes us a couple hours.
That's true.
I mean, that's amazing. The fact that you're able to do that and kind of, there's a million different ways to house hack and a million different ways to invest. And I think getting creative and taking advantage of whatever your scenario is fantastic. So, okay. So you guys have 3 properties. Is that right?
Correct.
Mhm.
And one of them is a duplex?
Actually, we call that one 2 because it's 2 doors.
Okay, perfect,
It
'cause
is
it's 2, yeah.
singular. Yeah. But
Makes
we have
sense.
3
Okay,
doors
I
that we
love that.
rent. Correct. Yeah.
Love it. Okay, awesome. And you guys have been able to scale pretty quickly while also building in equity as sweat equity, really, right? When you're doing these
yeah.
renovations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we haven't actually done a refinance on the property that we added so much equity to because the interest rate was too good to do anything about it as it is. But yeah, we've built in a ton of equity in the properties that we've worked on. We've also had some properties that we've renovated and sold in the past as well that we don't currently own, and one is actually for sale right now. So we've done a lot of that renovation piece and adding a lot of value into the property. In addition to then you can actually charge more for your rentals because it is that much nicer. So we see our avatar for who rents in our duplex property as it's probably like some of them, if not the most expensive midterm rental in the market, because we particularly wanted to target that. So, I know a lot of people get on Furnished Finder for nursing contracts, but we have never had a nurse. We've only ever had retirees and digital nomads.
I think that's a huge thing to remember because, like you said, a lot of people come to Furnished Finder and think nurses, and we do have a lot of nurses, but we have a lot of everybody, right? We have a lot of retirees, we have a lot of snowbirds, we have a lot of digital nomads. So you get to choose kind of what your target market is for your property, and don't try to make your property for everybody. Like you guys have definitely not done that by designing it the way you have. You are targeting that higher end and it works out, but you can't have something that every single person likes.
As far as your midterm rentals go, one, you already emphasized the self-management is nice, even while you were skiing in the Alps, that funded one of your midterm rental stays, funded your ski trip to the Alps. The revenue breakdown is really what draws you to midterm rentals. So why don't you give us an example from your duplex?
Yeah. So we spent 9 months renovating the upper unit of that duplex, a full gut job pretty much. And when it was done, we told ourselves, we are going on a trip. We were renting this place out. It is so beautiful. We're going on a trip. This is while we were still living in it, kind of doing that house hack style where we were renting it while we were living in it. And
9 months. We had a baby and then we left it behind.
essentially. But we just put it on all the different platforms, Furnished Finder, Airbnb, everything that we could, Facebook Marketplace, and we did get a tenant from Furnished Finder who inquired for the month of February pretty much, or it was like half of January, half of February. And we said, okay, perfect, that's an exact time period. We want to go travel anyway. So we essentially booked a trip to the Alps because Levi didn't want to leave skiing behind. He's like, so we got to go to some place where we can ski. And we thought Europe would be a good option. And so for a month, we traveled the trip. So that the time period that we rented, I believe our revenue from that was around $6,500. And just for context, our mortgage on that entire duplex is $3,300. The downstairs was rented for like $4,500. So the upstairs and downstairs combined were over $10,000. And our trip was probably like $6,000. So it really did pay for the entirety of our time in Europe.
I think we definitely balled out hard enough to go over our budget.
We did, but that was on that was on us.
But virtually, basically speaking, for sure, we had the whole trip paid for, and that's really what skyrocketed or launched our endeavors with the primary house hack. For sure, was that initial trip.
Yeah, and one thing that we didn't say yet that I wanted to make sure and emphasize is because for whatever reason, investors get that mentality of, I can't get started until it's perfect. Every little thing has to be in place. But you guys are a prime example of that's not true. You had a sweet older gentleman living in your duplex while you were renovating it. So how did you
That is
communicate
true.
that to be able to have a successful stay while there's a lot of construction going on?
I mean, I think that was like the thing that did it was the communication, and we told him like, hey, we're gonna work around your schedule. We're gonna make sure we're not making any noise while you need it to be quiet, but we are doing like renovations upstairs. Always text us if you have like any noise issues. And luckily for us, he had some hearing issues, and we never once got a message from him.
Yeah, but he also just mentioned how he really admired us. He was in his like later 70s. He was doing a renovation on his own condo somewhere else and needed a place to pretty much wait that out. And what was supposed to be like 2 months ended up turning into 6 months. He was the best tenant ever. We got engaged while he was living downstairs, and he brought us a bottle of champagne. Like, it was one of those like really amazing situations, and I feel like that's just part of it. Of course, there are times when you have a tenant that's like, it's loud down here, blah, blah, blah. But we've been so clear about our listings. This is a basement unit. You will hear noise from upstairs. We try to be as conscientious as possible. And now that we don't live there, it's even harder because we can't really tell what's going on at any given time. But a lot of times I think just being as transparent as possible in your communication from the very beginning, like your listing to like the intro message when you give them the key codes and all that, like just being so conscientious because, it's all overcomeable, but you have to start
And
with a clean.
it's a game of reviews, really, right? Like the rental market is a game of getting good reviews, and disclosures always prevent bad reviews. Like if you have it disclosed on your property that it's a basement unit, there might be some noise from the upstairs, then no one like has grounds to write a review that it's a basement unit and there might be some noise coming from the upstairs, right? It's they lose their grounds, and so we've definitely learned that the second we get any kind of feedback like that, we immediately disclose it so that we can.
And we address it if we can.
Yeah,
if it's addressable.
We've done a lot of addressing for sure.
Two of ours that kind of apply to this conversation is it was actually the same property. It was a duplex. It was Dave and I's very first real estate purchase. We lived in one half. We rent out the other half long term. And then towards the end, right before we sold it, we transitioned it to midterm for maybe 6 months or something like that. And we were doing a bathroom remodel. And on that bathroom remodel, it overlapped where the guest was checking in before the bathroom remodel was done. We communicated the details. They were fine with that. And so they only had one bathroom to use for a couple days. And then the nice remodeled master bathroom was ready to go a couple days after they moved in. So they loved it. It was fantastic. She said, "This is the best shower. Thank you so much." And then same thing when we went to sell that duplex, we didn't take it off of midterm to be able to sell it. We just made sure and got someone that was going to be month to month and prepared them that, hey, it could sell at any point. And if it does, then we'll just put in that 30-day notice. And they were fine with that. And they even showed the property. And I think the sale probably happened because of how they showed the property. It was like, he was a veteran, and it was a veteran that purchased it. They just had a great connection probably. So like that was part of it too. So really, really, you don't have to wait until it's perfect. Just get started and make changes along the way.
Today's episode is proudly sponsored by Furnished Finder, the ultimate platform for hassle-free midterm rentals. Whether you're a seasoned landlord or just getting started, Furnished Finder has everything you need to find your next tenant. With Furnished Finder, you can say goodbye to booking fees, markups, and commissions, and hello to direct bookings. If you're ready to experience all the benefits renting your property for 30 days or more, head over to FurnishedFinder.com where you can list your property for one low annual price. We make it easy to get started.
So one thing that I wanted to circle back to that I really liked what y'all said was how quickly you can get your property rented as a midterm rental. You said from day one it was rented. So let's talk about just the overall midterm rental process, combined with the furnishing and design of when do you start marketing your property And when do you start furnishing the property? Do they go hand in hand? Is one before the other? So how did you guys do it?
We've done it a few different ways. For the one that rented like the day we listed it, that was like we had a occupancy, a long-term renter, and then they left, and we gave ourselves 1 month to get the whole place set up as an MTR. And so it was a few things. We had to paint the walls. We changed out some light fixtures. We call that a lipstick renovation, nothing serious, just like, just a little bit of lipstick and furnishing. And that was at a time when like we were on a budget. So your girl was Facebook marketplacing everything, and I didn't have any. For a 2-bed, 1-bath in a mountainous town, I have the records. It was like $7,200 for the entire renovation and furnishing. And so that was really fast, like I said, 1 month, and we listed it. I got the photos taken the day before I listed it. And so it wasn't like we listed it before it was ready kind of situation for that one. But I do not know if it was extremely lucky or what, or maybe our price was kind of low at the time, but someone literally reached out the next day, and she moved in. And so that was an amazing situation, and we literally had no gaps for a year. And then maybe I kind of got smart about the price a little bit, and now it's like probably more leveled because I'm charging a little bit more, which is okay. We've had another property that we listed before it was ready, but we had pictures of it staged. And so we didn't actually have any furniture in it, but we knew we were like very ready for it to be rented, and like we were losing money every day that we didn't have it rented. So we just said, okay, and we could not short-term rent it. It was a condo. So we're like, okay, we got to get a midterm renter in it, and let's just see if anybody's interested at this price. And so we like put it on one day, that price, like didn't get any bites. So we dropped the price. And then the second like someone was like, hey, I'd like to come and see this, it was like, we have to furnish this thing tomorrow. Thankfully it was completely renovated, but we literally in 1 weekend bought every single piece of furniture.
This was another one of those scrappy furnishing jobs.
Scrappy furnishing jobs, but hey, it looks beautiful.
It was like 3 days on Facebook Marketplace, and then 2 days of like driving all across town picking stuff up. And if you're a hustler and trying to get started and don't have money, like it's definitely the way to do it.
For sure. Borrow somebody's truck, buy them something, like
a U-Haul,
get them
like
lunch.
get a U-Haul too. It's like $20 for a day or something, like $30 for a day.
Even if you're just kind of like testing your thesis, right? Even if you're like, hey, I think this property would do well as a midterm rental, but I'm not sure. You don't have to spend 20 or 30 grand to set it up.
It's so true. You don't.
Even if you have, we have one of our only single family home that is a midterm rental. We were a little bit like, I'm not like as sure about this one. It was a new market, a different target market we were going after. And also like way, way bigger than anything we'd ever furnished before. And I was like, I don't care if we replace some of this furniture in 3 or 6 months. I don't care.
So true.
I don't want to spend $30,000 to furnish it. So sometimes you just have to make those compromises and know that when you have a move out and a move in, you might be replacing some stuff, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because we all can't just, open up the checkbook and write a check to cash all the time. But I like that. I like how you guys have gotten inventive. I do have a question for you guys about short-term rentals versus midterm rentals, since you've done both. Short-term rentals, you have a lot of instant books, or at least a lot of hosts allow instant books. I'm assuming you guys do. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
We do. We have it set up with a lot of restrictions though. Like even for our short-term rentals, we don't let them book too far in advance. Short-term, we only let them book midterm way far in advance. So that way it gets booked like that first. But I know you were like getting to a point or a question.
Yeah. My question really is, when you're doing an instant booking, a lot of times you don't, and short-term rentals in general, you don't have as much control over the tenant screening as you necessarily do with a midterm. And a lot of people get nervous about that. How much more comfortable do you feel with a midterm tenant?
You get a different kind of clientele that's midterm. And that's a clientele that's going to take care of your property because it's theirs. It's theirs for a month, it's theirs for 2, right? And so there's a lot less, there's so much less hassle. We're not asked for toilet paper to be restocked when it runs out, or like little things like that. Like they take a lot more ownership in their stay.
I think like what another way Levi's saying is like midterm rentals like almost is a screening itself. You know what I mean? Like versus a short term, like think about if you were to go and rent a place for a weekend. I'm sure we're all good people, but I am probably going to be a lot worse of a tenant for a weekend stay than I would be if it were a month in general, because I know that there's like something to be said about like, hey, no one's going to clean this up on Monday. I'm going to have to clean it up on Monday or something like that. So, but we do like knowing who's going to be staying there. For the biggest reason being the issue we've had with sound transfer. There's been a big thing for us for like, okay, how many dogs do you have? Like things like that, where there's like just a lot of ability to be a lot more thoughtful about, do we think this person's going to bother the people downstairs and vice versa? Because that's going to be our biggest complaint if we got one. So yes, having the ability to screen is for sure a helpful piece of like the midterm rental game. And you know, when we do the occasional short-term rental weekend because there's a gap or like a week off or whatever, it is always like it's a gamble. Thankfully, I feel like when you have really nice design and you're actually pushing your rental to be some of the top in the market, there is an automatic level of filtration that like comes with that, right? So it's way more expensive. Someone is gonna just have a lot more ability to probably be gentler to your rental. You know, we have a huge disclaimer if it's an instant book that says like there is absolutely no parties. You will be evicted if there's a party, if we get a notification about that. Like, so we try to put a lot of disclosure and communication on the front end. But ultimately, yeah, it is still a risk. But I think that's why having better design and like really making your rental, even if it is a midterm and not a short term, like just some of the top of the line, which is what we always are doing for our clients as a design company, like that's what's going to put you in that safer zone.
Hey landlords, are you ready to level up your rental game and simplify your midterm rental business? Well, get ready to meet your new best friend, KeyCheck. KeyCheck is your all-in-one solution for stress-free property management. With tenant-paid screenings, online rent payment processing, custom lease creation, and a suite of incredible landlord tools, you'll wonder how you ever lived without it. No more chasing down checks or sifting through piles of applications. KeyCheck helps you organize and manage all things landlording in a simple and efficient way. Make landlord life a breeze with KeyCheck, the game changer for modern property owners. Visit keycheck.com to unlock the power of stress-free property management and take your rental business to new heights.
All right, well, we've been hinting at the design conversation, so I think this is a great time to segue into that. You know, part of the midterm rental process is one, being able to recognize, is my property a good fit for this market? How can I furnish it to, to get the maximum value out of the property and determine what my clientele is going to be to match that furnishing style?
Yes,
yeah,
great question.
The first thing that we do with any client, any person that we're working with, is a market research analysis. We're picking apart like what other Airbnbs are doing in the area, what the area draws as far as attractions.
And also, if it's a midterm rental, we're looking at the Furnished Finder stats sheet. We're looking at how many inquiries there are and what type of inquiries there are. Because I think all of those things play into like who is the avatar, who is your target audience, and then ultimately like what do they want in a rental? That's like the biggest question. And we work with other entrepreneurs in general. It's always asking better questions. It's like, who is this person? What do they actually care about? What are their pain points and what are their gain points? When you can kind of analyze those things, you can really set up an MTR or an STR for success. So let's pretend we find out that there are a lot of digital nomads coming into the Salt Lake City area because they like to ski in the winter, which I have great statistics on, so I know a lot about. But we can figure out, okay, they're going to want a place to live, work, and enjoy. And so it needs to kind of come in that order. We used to just have one desk in one kind of common area, and we realized a lot of people, because there was two like pretty large bedrooms, were doing double couples, and sometimes, or even just a single couple, and then they didn't have another place to take a call, so they were like sitting on the bed. And so we realized very quickly, okay, we need to have two dedicated workspaces that have separation by walls.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, step one being like identifying the target audience, and then step two is actually giving your property brand identity. What is your property to the target audience? And give all the way from giving it a name to giving it like the amenities that it needs to accommodate that target audience.
Yep. And so we call our property Skier's Paradise on every platform. And now like people will text us that are recurring tenants from the last, year or something. Hey, is Skier's Paradise open? Like, I think that shows a lot about like how they enjoyed their stay and what they can expect going forward. So branding is very important. And like we said, live, work, and enjoy like living. Like you have to make sure you have enough sleeping arrangements, and it has to be comfortable. You can stand a bad mattress for a weekend at an Airbnb. You can't stand it for a whole month or 2 months or 6 months. And so I think actually investing in really high quality linens and mattresses, pillows, all of the things that like you can sleep and have a good experience is very important. And we have like a list of those things that we recommend, and we can gladly share that with you ladies, and you can share that with your listeners. The other thing would be work. So if they are digital nomads, if they're nurses, the things that would require them to have a good working environment, maybe they're going to be sleeping during the days. We know blackout curtains, we know noise machines, things like that are going to be so important. And then enjoy, like, why are they there? They're not just there, probably not just there to work. They're going to get to enjoy in some way. So for us, that's like, we want to have a place for them to store their skis and a place for their boots to get dried. So we have all of those things, and we recommend that to all of our mountain houses that we help design for. Or if it's a mountain biking region or a hiking region, like we've installed mountain biking racks because you want to have like a good, safe place to hold those in, as well as like an easy way for them to park, and just like setting up ease when it comes to the enjoyment is important.
And this is kind of like a double-edged in a good way, because not only does it really show that you're catering to the clientele, it's also going to put a lot less wear on your property. If there's a place for skis to go, then skis aren't going on the floor. And if there's a place for a mountain bike to go, then it's not going up against the wall. And so that's like a big thing that people don't really realize, is that by catering to those needs, you're actually increasing the longevity of the property as well.
Yeah, I think this is something we don't talk about a lot with midterm rentals, because we always say, you don't need a lot of the recreation stuff because people are coming in there to live. But in markets like Salt Lake City, they're gonna ski or mountain bike while they're there, right? So it's kind of this exception. But I think you can even translate it to practical things. Like a lot of our properties are in the Midwest, where it gets really, really cold and really wet and snowy in the winter. And having a boot rack or a waterproof mat under there, like, did we have to have it? No. It's more of an accommodation to, like you're saying, like somewhere to store it safely where it'll protect the property, and it comes off just kind of as a convenience, right? So I really like that way of thinking. I don't think we've necessarily talked about that before. I'd love to hear other differentiators you guys use when you're furnishing a short-term versus a midterm. Because there's got to be some differences, like you said, with the bedding and the mattresses. What else kind of is top of mind when you're thinking, okay, this is a midterm, we're going to furnish it this way, or this is a short term, we're going to furnish it this way, or maybe it's a hybrid, it's going to play both roles, we're going to furnish it this way?
Yeah, a few things immediately come to mind. The first is storage of stuff. When you're staying for a weekend, you're only bringing a suitcase. When you're staying for 2 months, you're bringing a lot more than that usually. And so having closets that are available for hanging clothes, a dresser. When it comes to short-term rentals, and I know that they're only using it as a short-term rental, I'm like, do not bother with a dresser. It's an expensive piece of furniture. It's heavy and it breaks. When it comes to a midterm rental, you have to have it. Like, it's not like a question. Like, I would say that's one of those things, you got to have folding storage for clothing, because you're going to be taking it in and out, and it's very important that you have like that usefulness. The same is true with like the kitchen. You got to have, they might be bringing some stuff for their own. Obviously they might just use all of your own stuff, but having like a little space that you can add, like have something that they're bringing. Maybe they have a special set of knives. We've had a lot of tenants actually bring that, or like their own favorite cooking utensils. I like having one drawer open for that, just because you never know. And I think in general too, with a midterm rental, we have a lot of really good appliances, and a lot of those have been requested by the tenants. Like, hey, there's no air fryer. Is there any way I could get an air fryer? We're like, amazing, we'll buy you an air fryer. And then that's like an amenity that gets added. So I think that's an opportunity for you to like hear the feedback, fulfill it for the person who asked. One, that's going to make their stay that much better. And two, it's probably going to make the next person's stay that much better.
I think that maybe one thing I would add to that is like working setup monitors is like way more important in a midterm versus a short term.
Yeah, monitors.
Generally, like personally for me, I'm of the opinion that like it should feel like home, whether it's a short-term or a long-term stay. And so that line is a lot like more blurry for me than for most people. I would rather invest in the dresser, even if it's a short-term, as long as it like isn't being replaced by something more apt for a short-term stay.
But that's like more for our own personal properties. When I'm talking to clients, I'm trying to optimize for their specific situation. So if I know they're just doing short-term rentals, I'm not going to give them as much emphasis on, you need 2 desks at least separated by a wall. I will say you need at least 1 desk. But with a midterm, like there might be a midterm guest here and you're sleeping more than 3 people, you need at least 2 dedicated desk areas that are separated by a wall because of those meetings and things like that, as well as dressers and closet access. Because a lot of times short-term rental people will close off closets or reconvert them because you really don't need that much storage of clothes if you're staying for, like I said, a week or a weekend. And so I would say those are the big ones. I think when it comes to like exterior stuff, short-term rentals are going to have a way higher demand for like those exterior amenities like hot tubs and saunas or pickleball courts, but it doesn't mean it doesn't do well in a midterm market. Like I think that's one of the biggest that's the biggest thing being left behind by the midterm market is people are like, I just need to get by. And I agree that, and I think if you're savvy and you're smart and you're just trying to get through it and scrappy, go for it. Like just put the bed there, get the nightstand, get a lamp, you're gonna be fine with that. But the more you can add to the design of your property, the more amenities you can bring in. And they don't have to be that expensive. They can be like a heated blanket. Sometimes people love that. You know what I mean? Like those are the kind of things that you can make your guest experience that much better. You can probably charge a little bit more. Or if nothing else, you're getting better reviews and more occupancy. So I would say push.
Well, one thing I would kind of touch on is we have a concept of like an MVP, minimum viable product, which is like defining your V1, right? When you're going into a property and you're building it out, what does it absolutely need at a base level? Guaranteed, you're going to want a V2. You're probably going to want a V3. You might even want a V4. But getting the V1 done first is super important because then you can start collecting revenue on it, which can then be reinvested into the future iterations of the property. And then you can get a higher nightly amount as you increase the amenities, as you increase the design, as whatever it is. But having that definition of like, what does complete look like to get this on the market at its minimum viable product?
Yeah, and I think that there's something too when it comes to midterm rentals. A lot of short-term rental mentors will say, don't put it on there unless it's at 100 to start with, because like you're gonna have to retake pictures. If you add an amenity next year that you didn't have this year, now your reviews are confusing, and that's not really, doesn't apply to midterm rentals as much. I think you can take that like step by step, iterate on the process, add more benefits as you go, especially because a lot of times we as midterm rental hosts will go there maybe for a week and fix some things up once a year, and that's a great opportunity to be like, what can we add while we're there?
Mm-hmm. And of course, this depends on where you're at in your investor journey. Like a lot of questions are going to come to that, but starting out, like don't go for the top level to start out with. You don't need to.
That's such great advice. Yeah, it's some things that I've been thinking about while y'all are expressing all these valuable tricks of the trade is, that V1. Well, that V1, don't forget to include in your marketing what is around you. So like the idea of some people like pickleball, it's growing so quickly, right? That it's like that's actually can be a huge perk, but rather than always investing and maybe your property doesn't even have the space, we have a property that there's a pickleball 6 courts about a 5-minute walk away that we can add to our Furnished Finder listing without it having to be built into, a cost for us. It's just knowing what perks someone might be attracted to around your area. Another 100%. Thing would be like exercise bikes. If you're seeing a lot of requests coming into your market for gym equipment, well, maybe you add some gym equipment to your listing and to your property. That is a very small investment. So I like the conversation about V1 versus V4 and that you can build along the way. We say that a lot. So let's talk about some of those design mistakes and lessons that you've learned. And let's start with pricing. Like a lot of people, I've heard this mentality of I'm going to put, lower end furniture because if something breaks, then it's easier to replace. But then, that's not taking into consideration the revenue loss by putting in that lower end furniture. So what are your tips there between like the revenue impact of design and how you apply that to your V1 version?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like you will have lesser revenue with lower end furnishings for sure, but for me, like there's a more painful point to that, and that it's going to break a lot faster, right? The lifespan of your furnishings is going to be a lot less, which is fine, especially if you're starting out and you're doing the Facebook Marketplace scrap, right? Like that's 100% fine. But the higher quality furnishings that you get in there, one, people are going to treat them nicer, so they're going to last longer. Two, they're going to be higher quality, so they're going to last nicer. And three, they're going to be nicer, so they're going to pull in more revenue.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. This is like a hack when it comes to purchasing furniture that I always try to tell people do is get the cheapest solid wood piece you can find. And you would be surprised at what you can find. The MDF type board where it's like particle board is like what every single pretty much piece of cheap furniture is made out of now. That is what's going to break. That is what's going to break, especially when it's assembled incorrectly.
Here's a super useful piece of information as well as differentiating between high touch and low touch items.
Very
Light
important.
fixtures do not need to be nice. They're not touched, like they're not going to break. Something like a coffee table, people are putting their feet up there.
Super high touch.
It needs to be able to support it.
I was just about to say, like, I always make sure the dining room table or the kitchen table is really like it's solid wood. If there's an entry table that people are just setting their keys on, I can do MDF on that like all day. That's totally fine, right? But it's all about like, how are you going to use it? Is it an accent table in the corner of an office that's going to have a lamp on it and nobody's going to touch? Great, I'm going to buy something cheap. But if it's something people are touching every single day, it's got to be able to stand the test of time.
It's so
I think
true.
also to that, like, you need to make sure that you check in on your furnishings and make sure that they're holding up, even if they are really nice.
Yeah.
You know, stuff
true.
isn't meant to last forever. So, okay, you guys, I want to pivot a little bit because you guys have been so successful in the short term and the midterm space. I want to know, when you're looking at a market and you're evaluating it, and obviously you guys are playing a lot in your backyard, right? With investing and living in Salt Lake City, but I think you've definitely been experienced enough to know how to evaluate markets and working with clients and such like that. What do you look for when you're looking to say, well, this property would be a good fit for midterm, or I don't know if this is quite the right one for midterm. Maybe I use it a different way.
Yeah. For me, I'm looking for what's performing best in a market, and then how does that translate to how the property I'm looking at is going to perform. And so let's say I'm analyzing a potential deal I see. It's like a 3-bed, 2-bath, and I don't know, Big Bear, California, because we've done some properties there. I am now going to type in 3-bed, 2-baths in AirDNA, which is one of the property analyzer tools I use. I'm also going to just go on Facebook Marketplace. I'm going to see how like people are just like listing their 3-bedroom, 2-baths in terms of like room rentals or even just like the full midterm situation. And then I'm also just going to look at the statistics coming in from Furnished Finder. And if they're wanting it to be a midterm rental, I'm going to just look at what the demand looks like and what the supply looks like. And that's probably like the biggest indicator of whether or not I think that deal would be a good midterm rental. And then for a short-term rental, I am going to look at what is doing well, how well they're doing. Like, is it worth it? Sometimes it's not even worth it in certain markets. Salt Lake City being one of them. It's not a fantastic short-term rental market because there's so much regulation. There's not as much competition, and so the prices aren't really shooting up like you would think they would in a big growing city. And so because of that, midterm renting is actually a really great opportunity because there is a lot of this migration during certain seasons, snowbirding and summer birding, et cetera. And so I think it's important to like look at what is doing best in that market. And then if there's enough space and if you're going to compete at the same level as what's doing the best, then you have a chance to do that with your property. So I think that's like the thing. Do you have the budget? Yeah, sure, there's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath looking amazing as a short-term rental in Big Bear, California, but did they put in $300,000 into that property? They probably did. Do you have $300,000? No? Okay, then let's look at what's doing well at the same level that you think you could accomplish. And is it worth it then? There's never going to be a perfect, like, yes, for sure you can do it unless you're willing to go to the absolute highest level. Otherwise, you're just going to have to make a really good prediction about what you think you can do based on the revenue you're seeing. It would be awesome if you could get in touch with people who are actively doing it in the market. Go on the midterm rental. Hey, is anybody have a midterm rental in Big Bear Housing? Can I talk to you about it? I think that would be like a huge way to know, to give yourself some risk mitigation. Just understand what it is that you're willing to do, how much you're willing to pay, and what you're willing to give up if it doesn't work out. But a lot of times you can get a really clear picture of what you'll do and what you'll make using some of those resources I talked about.
Okay, well, I think let's wrap up with one last question. Any Furnished Finder marketing tips for those listening for, pricing your rental, fees for your rental, how to stand out in comparison to others? What are your Furnished Finder marketing tips?
I'll take this because I handle the Furnished Finder. So I think it's, for me, one of the things I like to do, since at this point, Furnished Finder doesn't have like a way for you to see like a calendar and you know exactly what dates are available.
It's coming very soon.
I heard it's coming, so that's really exciting. But while we can't do that, I like to put at the very top of my listing description what months are available. And for my market, it's very particular. There's price differences for each month because it's so seasonal. So I say January available, this is the price for the month. February unavailable. March available, this is the price for the month. June on available, this is the summer rates. And so that's been super helpful. I've played around with like setting the actual price at the highest and at the lowest. And I've noticed that some people, like at the one that's the cheapest, and when I have it at the lowest, I get more inquiries directly, but a lot of them are like, that's not the price you use. I said, oh, our summer rate or our winter rate is this. And they're like, that's not the price it was. And I realized, so that can be kind of misleading. I'm like, hey, it's in the description. So I'm trying to be as just communicative as I can. At the same time, with the greatest part about Furnished Finder is you can just see who's coming in, whether or not they particularly want your property or not. You can at least understand, reach out to them, and see if you can find a conclusion there. But for the most part, I'd say you can just keep a really keen eye on the tenant leads that are coming in, and then just try to reach out to everyone you can. You never know who might be a good fit, and they might put their budget as one thing, and then they're actually willing to do something different. And in my market, like the 32 plus is like pretty much what we're looking at. So I don't really know what their budget is, because like that's the max you can put, and so that makes it so that a lot of more conversations can come out of that. So. But yeah, I'd say like play around with seasonality if you haven't tried that before. If there is seasonality in your market, like you could potentially be charging more in different months. So maybe notice whenever your place is booking up months in advance, and those could be the months you could maybe get a little bit more revenue for.
Mm-hmm. I'll just add, I mean, this applies to a lot more than just the rental game, but just iteration being the name of the game, right? Getting started is the most important step. The next most important step is step 2, right? It's a game of incremental improvements. You're always just incrementally making it a better experience, and then also understanding like incrementally a higher price point, whatever it is, right? It's such a game of steps and more than phases.
Yeah, definitely. Katie, any last thoughts?
No, I think you guys are the perfect example of really getting creative and getting resourceful and learning from every step you've gone through. Like you just said, Levi, learning and growing in steps, but also you guys have really taken advantage of each of those steps to make sure that those lessons carry over with you into your future. And I think that's huge. And from how you do renovations and how you furnish all the way down to how you communicate and how your property description is. You guys tinker with stuff, right? Like play around, see what happens when you change your headline or your description or the property or the way you furnish it, right? Explore a little bit. And I think just giving permission to, discover what works for your business and your market is the only way we're all going to grow. So kudos to you guys for doing that. And please share with everybody how they can get in touch with you if they would like to, and how they can connect with you on social media or otherwise.
Yeah. My name again is Bella Linchenko. On Instagram, I'm Let's Go with Bella. That's my handle. And you can also visit our website, letsgodesign.co if you want to see any of our renovations and interior design projects. And Levi.
And then I'm just Levi Linchenko. If you can figure out how to spell that last name, good luck. It's
Spell it like it sounds.
super phonetic, but yeah, just Levi Linchenko on Instagram and LinkedIn.
And it'll be in the show notes as well, probably in the title of the episode. So thank y'all so much for just sharing your midterm rental journey, and especially all the design tips and tricks. If you want to see their listings, don't forget to go to the show notes and you can click on their Furnished Finder listings, check out how they design them in Salt Lake City, and maybe you want to take your property to the next level and consider working with Bella and Levi. So stay tuned. We have tons of playlists on YouTube, so if there's a certain topic you want to dive deeper in, such as you want more design videos, or you want to know, I'm new to midterm rentals, I'm just getting started, what should I learn? We've got a playlist for that. So thanks for joining us. We'll catch you again soon, and always here for anything midterm rentals. Have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.